Okay, when we stopped reading 18, we know Rick was in the village and he had just seen a girl out in the rice paddy working with all the other workers. And she had, a young girl, maybe 12 years old, stood up, scratched the back of her neck. He said the tension was thick and he didn't know what to do with it. Cracker sat in front of him and he thought she was going crazy over a chicken because all the villagers have chickens that are underneath their huts, underneath their hooches. And I don't know, he's hearing U-Haul's voice in his head saying, trust your intuition. So, chapter 19. He signaled to the lieutenant, Sir, that girl just stood up and scratched the back of her neck. Maybe that was a signal of some kind. The girl looked like she was about 7, if that. Well, I thought it said 12. The lieutenant laughed. You're getting paranoid, dog handler. Vietnam will do that to you. Rick pulled Cracker. She refused to budge. This wasn't intuition anymore. It was common sense. Something was wrong. Sir, Rick called out again. The lieutenant turned around, this time with impatience in his face. Clear the village. I don't have time to be scared of a little girl. Let's just get this mission over with and get out of here. The men gathered together all of the villagers and animals so Cracker could search the hooches. Rick had no choice unless he wanted to disobey a direct order. He pulled on the leash with all of his might and said, Cracker, come. Cracker reluctantly stood up. Everything was all wrong. Even Rick was all wrong. Why wasn't he listening to her? She pawed Rick over and over, but he just kept hauling her leash. What was wrong with him? She turned her head quickly as she saw movement in the paddy. It was a rat, a big one, but then Rick was pulling on her again. She gave the rat one last mournful glance. Rick looked over and saw the rat scurry away. Relief spread through him. Maybe that's why she was acting so nuts. They never should have let dogs go after rats. Cracker smelled gunpowder, felt tension, and heard faint sounds coming from some of the houses. She growled, lay down, and refused to get up. All the men started laughing, and just like that, Rick felt a rush, exactly like the time in training right before he blew the booby trap. The laughing started to sound as if it were moving farther away from him, and everything suddenly seemed to go into slow motion. The second before it started, he thought, ambush. Villagers dropped to the ground all at once, as if on signal, and a barrage of fire rang out. Machine guns. As Rick hit the dirt, he saw his slack man buckle over, blood spurting from his neck. Gunfire seemed to be coming from every direction. Rick let go of Cracker's leash and struggled to get his M16 free. He couldn't see a single enemy, but gunfire burst from the houses. Charlie must have hidden in some tunnels under the huts. He blasted away at a hooch that had gunfire coming from it, and sudden, sharp pain burned from his right shin. But he didn't have time to check it. Cracker tried to crawl on top of him, no doubt to protect him, but it hampered his shooting ability, so he shoved her off and kept shooting. He backed up in a crawl, shooting the whole time, not having the slightest idea if he was hitting anything. He set his rifle on auto, even though he knew that meant he would use up his ammo more quickly. A bullet hit the ground right before him, kicking up mud in his eyes. It felt like acid. He tried wiping it out with his shirt, but his clothes were so filthy, he just was making it worse. He could barely see. He couldn't see. Machine gun fire exploded all around him. Charlie doesn't have enough machine gun ammo to keep this up long, someone cried out. So Rick wasn't surprised when the machine gun aspect of the battle quickly ended. Silence. Then a rocket-propelled grenade hit one of the APCs, blowing a hole in it. Pieces of the grenade ricocheted inside the APC. Someone screamed. The lieutenant must have called in for mortar fire because a mortar exploded at the far end of the village. But Rick still had no idea what had happened. He couldn't see a thing. Who was dead? Who was alive? And then he felt sudden panic. Where was Cracker? He cried out, Cracker! When she didn't answer, he called out again louder. Guys were starting to talk in a wary way, but not panicked. His own panicked voice sounded out of place. He could tell everyone felt relatively safe now. Finally, his eyes cleared enough that he could see. They still stung like mad, but at least he could look around and make some blur of movement and color. But Rick couldn't see Cracker anywhere. He searched out the cleanest spot he could find on his shirt and rubbed his eyes. That helped a little, but he still couldn't see Cracker. He knew she wouldn't have strayed far from him, but he wished he knew where she was. He looked toward the rice paddy, but didn't see her. He doubted she would have gone far toward the village, but he turned in that direction anyway, scanning the landscape. Some of the hooches were shot up so bad they weren't really hooches anymore. They were just piles of thatch now. The radio man was already calling for dust-offs. Blood type O negative. That's Oscar November. Appears to be sunken chest wounds. Rick tried to stay calm as he slowly scoured the countryside for Cracker. He tried to push the panic down. Someone started to urge him onto his back. Let me have a look at that leg. The urging grew stronger, and another man helped, forcing him onto his back. What leg? Rick said. I got to find my dog. Lie still, Private. It was the medic. Rick had a feeling again. What the heck was going on? The medic applied a tourniquet and started an IV. He heard the radio operator saying, Hansky, Richard, blood type A positive. Rick glanced at his leg and did a double take on the mess of blood and shrapnel. And just like that, it seemed as if the adrenaline of the battle drained from him and he could feel pain again, intense pain. It was as if his eyes told him what his body didn't. He was injured. He saw one especially long piece of metal sticking out of his leg, and he pulled it out, shouting at the sharp pang. The medic called to the radio operator. Shrapnel injury to popliteal artery. Shrapnel injury to popliteal artery, the radio man echoed. The medic called out. Resected tendon. Resected tendon. The lieutenant leaned over Rick. Don't worry, son. We'll have you dusted off right away. Rick said, Sir, I can't find my dog. I can't leave without her. He grimaced. Oh, man, my leg. We'll take care of your pain, said the medic. Rick felt his head start to swim. He must have had morphine. He tried to push himself up. No, he said, no. He saw one of the guys shaking a villager who chattered nearly hysterically in reply. Everybody was talking to somebody, English, Vietnamese. His eyelids felt heavy. I got to find my dog. Lie down, soldier. We'll find your dog. Rick made a sudden great effort and pushed himself into a squat. Ah! He screamed. Ah! The pain from his legs shot through his entire body. He fell back down. Oh, man. Oh, man. The radio operator called out, dust-off's on the way. Rick thought of Camel. You have to try to ask yourself whether you can do something. You have to try not to ask yourself whether you can do something. You have to tell yourself, I will do this. He shouted out like a maniac, I will push myself up. And he did. He got up and shouted, I got to find my dog, Cracker. The noises in the background seemed to fade. Cracker! He tried to call out, but his voice was weak, and he fell to the ground. He could tell he might pass out soon. He said weakly, I will do it. But then he couldn't. He lay back. Doc, you got to promise me you'll find my dog. We'll find your dog. You got to promise. He had this weird feeling that nobody else was real, that maybe he was already dead and they were alive, and he was just watching. Gotta get my dog, he said. I thought he said. But the approaching helicopter noise drowned out his voice. His head swam so badly he didn't know if the doctor answered or not. He wasn't even sure if that was his own voice saying, find Cracker.